Amparito, comadre Cargo. En un viaje que hice a Barranquilla, conocí una linda colombiana. Me quedé con las ganas de casarme con esa chiquilla. En un viaje que hice a Barranquilla, conocí una linda colombiana. Me quedé con las ganas de casarme con esa chiquilla. Amparito, Amparito, pero qué buena, Amparito, pero qué rico te olvidaste del negrito. Es un maracuchito. Amparito, oye, Amparito, me creí del mundo dueño, pero solo era un sueño. Amparito, oye negrita, Amparito.
And Joe's shirt is off the cuff. Oh yeah. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, we are back. Look at that. 2 shows in a row. And two shows in 2 days. Look at that. Look how much I love you. I'm in a particularly good mood. I'll tell you why before I get started with today's show. Serial Killers, Gotta Love 'Em, Part 2. Went to work today, my usual time. I get there at 7 in the morning, and then I put an 8-hour day. But today, there was some confusion in the scheduling, and my coworker that's supposed to relieve me at 3 o'clock came in at 2 o'clock, and after a little talking to with the manager, he agreed to let me go early, and I ended up leaving about 45 minutes early from work. Which, if you ever gotten the chance to leave from work early when you really don't want to be there in the first fucking place, you know exactly how good that is. So it was great because I had a bunch of errands to run. I had to go to the bank. I had to fill up my car with gas. I had to go to the store. And it was gonna take me roughly an hour, But by leaving at the time I did, I ended up getting home at the same time I would have gotten home if I left at my regular time and just went directly home. So I got home at 3:15 as opposed to, 4 o'clock. So that puts me in a good mood. And that puts me in an even better mood because it means that I get to start celebrating early. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, what are we celebrating, Joe? Okay, but let's break out the beer so we can celebrate. Here we go. Well, tomorrow we're celebrating what I consider the kickoff of the holiday season, my birthday. That's right. Tomorrow is my birthday, September 10th. I was brought to you here on the year of our Lord, 1970, September 10th, in the Bronx, New York, at the Bronx Lebanon Hospital. Born to an unwed 15-year-old girl, also known as Mom. I always think it's funny when I talk about my mother and my birthday because she doesn't remember it. She doesn't. And I used to think it was because she's a Jehovah's Witness, and Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't celebrate birthdays. But, let me put it this way. Just about a year or two ago, she asked me when my birthday was. She didn't know. She's like, the 8th? And I'm like, no, Ma, the 10th. But she did this when I was young, and she was a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, one day we're walking down the street, we're in the Bronx, New York, and she goes, "You were born on the 10th, right? No, the 9th." And I'm like, no, Ma, it's still the 10th. And I'm like, Jesus, woman, you were there. You were the one in the stirrups and a great deal of, bodily pain as my gigantic melon came out of you. So yes, tomorrow's my birthday, and I'm looking forward to it. I took the day off. My girlfriend also generously took the day off from work to spend the day with me. She is very much along with me. Believes that a birthday is your own personal holiday, and it's for some people it's not a big deal. They don't care if they go to work or not. It's not a big deal. But you know what? For me, it kind of is. Especially since the age of 8, I didn't get birthdays anymore. So for me, it's a big deal. And tomorrow we'll be celebrating, we'll be doing stuff, we'll be going out to dinner, we're going out to Wesley Avila's Gorilla Tacos for brunch tomorrow. And whatever it is, my girlfriend and I, decided to to do. I'll share it with you afterwards. I will. Okay, we are talking about serial killers. Gotta love them. It's such a fascinating topic to me because we are literally talking about human minds that no longer think like humans. Okay, we're talking about people that have disconnected themselves so far away from the rest of humanity that they think it's okay to kill them. Now, I'm not one of these people that's going to tell you a bunch of bullshit like I've never thought about killing somebody. I have. I've fantasized about it, And believe it or not, a psychiatrist will tell you that that's healthy. It's perfectly healthy to fantasize about killing somebody that's pissed you off. That's fine. As long as you don't actually start planning it, you're fine. Okay? It's a way of self-therapy. It's a way of, enjoying this visceral moment where you can see yourself killing this other human being. And, I got to tell you, there's a lot of people on my list. All right? I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of fucking people that I would just like to, skin. My stepfather's on the top of that list. Hate his guts. But I don't actually go out and do it. I think that becomes the real difference between, a normal human being and a murderer. And the difference between a murderer and a serial killer, there is a difference. Is you have to remember that most murderers kill somebody they know. Usually a friend, a spouse is also incredibly common, a relative, could be a child, could be a cousin, somebody went to school with. The odds are when somebody decides that they are going to kill you, in their mind, you got it coming. You fucked up, and now they're going to exact the revenge upon you, all right? And see, that makes sense to me, doesn't it make sense to you? It makes sense that, that you would kill somebody that somebody that can affect you to the point where you will actually want to kill them. Where serial killers, they kill for the reasons in their head, and it's got nothing to do with the victim. I mean, sure, the victim might follow some sort of path in their mind of why it is they do this. Maybe the victim reminds them of their mother or their father, or a victim reminds them, of innocence. The victim reminds them of something that they suppress in themselves. Quite often, serial killers, if you've been listening, have been bisexual and homosexual. And when you're repressing your sexuality, it leads to a lot of anger, and so they act out their fantasies, but under the guise that they know that if they actually just went out and just had homosexual sex, they think that something terrible would happen in their lives. So instead, they go out and destroy somebody else's. Now let's talk about our first contestant today, Andre Chikatilo. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Andre Chikatilo. My girlfriend probably knows how to pronounce this because the guy was Russian. That's right. So many people seem to think that serial killing is an American problem. And I'll tell you the truth. We probably have more serial killers than most countries do, if not more than any other country does. Okay, I'll be the first one to admit that. But this guy was operating, I think in the 50s, 60s, and he was brutal. Okay, he was vicious. It was something that the Russian government, the Soviet government, had never ever really dealt with openly before. Okay, when it came to mysterious killings, the Soviet Union had a very distinct habit of not addressing it properly, not investigating it properly, because according to them, serial killers, that was an American problem. That was something that could never happen in the Soviet political system, in the communist system. The way they put it was, only someplace as decadent as America could produce a serial killer, not the great nation, not the Soviet Union. Our system would never ever produce such a monster. Well, they did. Okay, Andrei Chikatilo. I make him sound Italian when I say it. I don't mean to. He was considered so vicious that his trial was conducted in a cage in the courtroom. Yeah, and he had such disdain for the entire system and the people that were there observing and judging him that he pulled down his pants and shook his dick at everybody. Okay, now what did he do? Well, let's go a little history. Well, his deal was he'd like to kill people while having sex with them. Now, this came out. It came out that despite the fact that him and his wife had 2 children, for the most part, he was impotent when it came, to sex. They actually did a movie on this guy on HBO. I think it was a movie or a miniseries. It was called Citizen X. Excellent movie. You should catch it if you can. But his deal would be he would lure young men and women, mostly women, sometimes very young, like teenagers, 12-year-olds, lure them out into a field, and then attack them with an array of knives that he had with him, and while trying to have sex with them, just stab them again and again and again and again, the knife representing his cock. At least that's what the analyst came up with. Let's see, he confessed to 56 slayings so savage that he was kept in an iron cage during his trial. Quote, this is a quote from Andre himself. "I am a mistake of nature, a mad beast. I had to see blood and wound the victims to get aroused." Yeah, I'm looking at the guy here, and he looks like a nut. He absolutely does look like an absolute fucking nut. Let's see here. Let's see. Now, to add to the whole Soviet system of denying that this guy existed, believe it or not, several other people admitted to the killings. Why? Well, because the Soviet form of interrogation was a little more intense than just asking questions. So, the convicted rapist, Alexander Kravchenko, confessed to the crime, as well as a few other people did, because they were tortured. And so rather than putting out a proper search for Andre, they just rounded up whoever they could, put it on them, and then just told everybody, "Hey, we did it. We're great. We're the Soviets." All right. His favorite technique would be to befriend young runaways, runaways of either sex at train or bus stations, lure them into nearby wooded areas, and then barbarically ravage them. Sickeningly, he'd gouge the breast and destroy the vagina, uterus, and bladder or abdomen of female victims. He'd mutilate the penis, scrotum, and anus of male targets, and once he chewed out a boy's tongue. Okay, now I don't know about you, but that sounds like a mad dog to me. But like I said, to you and me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? To you and me, you look at this, you think about this, and it doesn't make sense because we don't go out and kill people at random because there's something sick or wrong in our minds. Look, there's something sick and wrong in all of our minds. We just have the tools to deal with them. These guys do not. We're just about ready for our first break. Today's music is brought to you by Jose Moran and Madricabo. And that was you enjoyed their first song, Amparito. And here's their next song. It's known as La Feria. There's Jose Moran y Madricabo. I'm Joe the Shirt. I'm off the cuff, and I'll be right back.
Y
Joe's shirt is off the cuff. Welcome back. All right. I'm digging Jose Morani, Madrigaibo. I'm digging him. All right. Our next topic is the beast in the bunker. Beast with an S at the end. We're talking multiple beasts here. There's two guys. We're talking about Leonard Lake and his friend, disgraced Marine Charles Ng. These guys, here's one thing for you before I even get into what they did. Serial killers, generally speaking, tend to work alone. Okay? There's usually not, it's not what you normally consider a group activity for the most part. You know, the Manson family aside, you know, it's not something you call your buddy and go, "Hey, dude, what's up?" "Oh, no, nothing. What are you up to?" I was thinking about, kidnapping a runaway and torturing them in the woods and having sex with their dead body. You want in? Yeah, I got nothing to do. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, okay, right, all right. That typically doesn't happen. But with these guys, it did. Apparently, they were survival nuts. They started something that they like to call Operation Miranda. But really what it was they were setting up bunkers around the country wherein they could keep sex slaves and survive some sort of nuclear holocaust that might come along. Their plan was that when the shit hits the fan, that they would go to their bunkers, fortified bunkers with weapons, food, water, and sex slaves. Okay. Now, for whatever reason, they felt the need to kill people first. Okay. Let's see here. According to this, let's see, from 1983 to 1985, the twosome embarked on an orgy of rape, torture, and murder that claimed the lives of as many as 25 men, women, and infants as part of a twisted scheme to survive a nuclear holocaust. Wow. According to this, they built an underground bunker on their on Ng's property, on Lake's property with Ng's help, and had planned to duplicate the retreats across the country. They were planning on setting up multiple bunkers. They intended to stash supplies, weapons, and female sex slaves in their secret forts and ride out the impending troubles. But before going nationwide, like this was a business or something, they decided to perfect their plan with raids in California. Their neighbors, Lonnie Bond, his girlfriend Brenda O'Connor, and their infant son Lonnie Jr. were among the first victims. They also killed another young family, Harvey and Deborah Dubbs, and their young son, Sean. In both cases, the men and children were killed quickly, while the women were kept alive, used for sex and torture deep underground. And incredibly, Lake and Ng actually recorded the crimes. I mean, there's nothing like setting up evidence for the prosecution, is there? And what's really funny to me is how they got caught. The brutal killings may have continued for many more years if Ng and Lake hadn't broken a vice they used in their torture games. Darn it, they broke the vice. So, on June 2nd, 1985, Ng was caught shoplifting the tool from a San Francisco hardware store and fled the scene. Okay. You're engaged in kidnapping, murdering, and raping people. Shell out a few bucks. Buy the fucking vice. Good God, man. No time to be cheap. We got killing to do. But yeah, let's see what happened here. Let's see. Lake arrived later on to try to pay for the device, but by then the police were there. Suspicious cops searched his car and found a gun. Lake was arrested. At the jailhouse, Lake ratted out Ng, well, some pal you are, before swallowing a cyanide pill he'd kept hidden in his clothes. He died 4 days later. That's a harsh way to die. Let me tell you that right now. Inside the master bedroom, cops uncovered pieces of blood-soaked women's lingerie. The four-poster bed had wires tied to each pillar with restraints bolted into the floor. Blood was everywhere. While searching the cabin, lawmen stumbled across Lake's diary detailing Operation Miranda. One investigator noticed a foot poking out of some dirt and proceeded to unearth nearly 40 pounds of burnt and smashed human bone fragments from at least a dozen bodies. They also found the doorway to the killer's underground torture chambers. Inside were 3 rooms. First one contained torture tools and a sign reading "The Miranda." The second room was a 3 by 7 foot cell with a bed, a chemical toilet, a table, and a one-way mirror, and shackles. There was no light, but it was wired for sound. The room was designed so prisoners could be watched and heard from the outer room. Tapes and cameras were found in their space. Wow. It's one thing, I think, that, for there to be one of these people around. And it's quite another for there to be multiple peoples of these type of people around. But for there to be 2 guys that got together and said, you know what we should do? Rape, torture, and kill people? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's what they really came up with. In their head, they justified all this because they needed to ride out a nuclear holocaust. Now, I don't believe that for a second. I do believe they intended to build more bunkers, but I think that's just, so they could travel and go on vacation, leave town every once in a while still being able to rape, torture, and kill people. Right here in L.A., you might remember the serial killer known as the Night Stalker, one Richard Ramirez. By all accounts, not the most intimidating human being on the planet, considered to be a scrawny human being. Let's see, apparently he terrorized suburban communities with a savage spree of rape, murder, and mutilation. Again, they just can't get away from that paradigm now. Known as the Night Stalker, Ramirez was a real-life boogeyman who invaded bedrooms and tore innocent people from the sanctuary of their dreams. Men were typically dispatched quickly with gunshots. Women were kept alive to be savored. Only after raping and degrading them, sometimes repeatedly, would Ramirez cold-heartedly kill them. Now, Ramirez here was not particular about who he went around killing. He killed the men, to get to the women. The men were, secondary. They weren't important. According to this, at least 14 people died and more than 24 were sexually assaulted during his reign of terror. His first victim was 79-year-old Jenny Vinkow. Okay? His victims were primarily female, but of any age, really. 79 years old is pretty fucking old. On June 28th, 1984, the old lady had left the window open because it was so hot. Ramirez removed the screen and climbed in before satiating his sex and bloodlust. Vinkow's body was found sprawled on the bed. She had been stabbed repeatedly, and her throat slashed so savagely she was nearly decapitated. Considered a modern-day Dracula or Jack the Ripper, he was just getting started. Let's see, May 29th, Malvial Keller and her invalid sister, Blanche Wolfe, 80. So like I said, he tended to stick with the easy targets in the beginning. A month later, 32-year-old Patty Elaine Higgins had her throat slit in her Arcadia home. 5 days after that, on July 2nd, another Arcadia senior, 75-year-old Mary Louise Cannon, was brutally beaten before her throat was cut open. In the end, Ramirez was captured while trying to steal a car. Picked the wrong neighborhood to continue his crimes. The owner, Faustino Pinon, wasn't going to let what they describe here as the skinny creep drive off with his prize red Mustang. Ramirez was tried in 1989. I was 19 years old. Wow. Found guilty on 43 counts of murder, rape, and other felonies. Upon receiving 19 death sentences, the Night Stalker said, "Big deal. Death comes to the territory. See you in Disneyland." Ramirez did finally die after 23 years on death row at age 53 on June 7th, 2013, of liver failure. So this guy just died last year. All right, I remember watching this on TV, and you look at him; he's just a creepy little dude. Now we're getting to some real meat in here. Most of you have never heard of Gravedigger Gain, or Gein. Gein or Gain. It's Gein. Gravedigger Gain. This guy, what he did was on such a level that he inspired many, pretty much the modern horror movie in a lot of ways. His crimes were the basis of the movie Psycho, The Silence of the Lambs, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's how nutty this guy was, okay? And yet, such humble beginnings. According to this, let's see, he became a real-life inspiration for the homicidal lunatics in these movies. He started out not with killing, but he started out robbing graveyards to mutilate bodies, have sex with corpses, and eat human organs. So he started out, on, I don't know if you can call it less depraved side of things, I guess if I have to choose between the two evils, I guess I'd rather have a guy, raping, mutilating, dead bodies rather than going out getting live ones. But that line's pretty thin. And he enjoyed a sick arts and crafts hobby with dismembered body parts. He would create jewelry, clothing, and household knickknacks out of bones and preserved flesh, including a nipple belt. Yeah, a nipple belt. According to this, he touched all the bases: necrophilia, cannibalism, and trophy taking. Let's see, Gain was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin in 1906, the son of an alcoholic father and domineering Bible-thumping mom. He and his older brother Henry grew up on a remote 160-acre farm in nearby Plainfield, working the land and absorbing their fanatic mom's religious rants about sin, especially the evils of women and sex. See, that's what you gotta love when it comes to these psychos. I've said it so many times. When in doubt, blame a woman. After Henry died in a fire with his father George drank himself to death. Devoted son Ed fawned over his mother in Augusta until she perished in 1945. According to this, left grief-stricken and on a desolate farm, he began indulging his perverted fantasies. According to this, he started making late-night visits to cemeteries, digging up bodies of freshly interred middle-aged women he thought resembled his mother. Once back at the farm, he mutilated the corpses, cutting off body parts, preserving some, and fashioning others into objects like a nipple-adorned belt, shin-bone table legs, skull soup bowls, and furniture upholstered with human skin. He also kept a shoebox of female genitalia, including his mother's, which he stuffed into panties and wore around the house. That's right. He would take vaginas that he had cut off bodies and stuff them into panties and then wear the panties. Whoa. According to this, Gain was obviously confused about his sexual orientation. He also skinned corpses and stitched together a jumpsuit complete with breasts that he would don to see what it felt like to be a woman. Okay, so remember Silence of the Lambs? There you go. But was it Buffalo Bill, right? Was making the female skin suit. For nearly 10 years, Gain apparently lived out his twisted fantasies without actually hurting anyone, but that changed in the winter of 1954 when he killed 54-year-old tavern owner Mary Hogan. Cops had no idea what had happened. Then in November of 57, Gain shot to death hardware store owner Bernice Warden. Her son Frank was a deputy sheriff and recalled local weirdo Gain had visited the store several times the previous week. Cops went to search his house, and what they discovered would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The first thing they found was Warden. What was left of her body hung upside down on a meat hook in a shed. Her head had been hacked off at the base of the neck, and her torso was slit down the front. Her head and intestines had been tossed into a box, and her heart was sitting in a saucepan on the stove. Cops also found human organs in the refrigerator, newspaper stuffed heads hanging on walls like hunting trophies, and scores of other grisly items, including missing tavern owner Hogan's skinned face in a paper bag. They skinned her, took off her face, and put it in a paper bag. According to this, they were only able to pin 2 of the murders on Gain, but they found body parts from at least 15 women on his property, and he believes some came from other people missing in the vicinity of his home. The Mad Butcher of Plainfield spent the rest of his days in lockdown in a mental hospital, where it said that he was a model patient. who got along well with others and never needed tranquilizing medication. Before Guine died at age 77 in 1984, following a long battle with cancer, the superintendent from the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane told reporters this, quote, "If all of our patients were like him, we'd have no trouble at all," end quote. Now, before I go on break, I gotta tell you, I'm looking at some of the pictures that they have here. There's a picture of a woman on meat hooks, and her back has been completely removed. Okay, you can what I can see here is ribs. It's grotesque, and then hanging in the background on a hanger is her front end. I'm looking at the skinned torso. The skin of the torso. You can see the woman's breast in this picture, which he apparently was planning on using as an apron. Okay, then. On that note, it's time for another break. This is more Jose Maron y Madricaibo. This is his song, Sin Rencor. I'm Joe the Shirt. I'm off the cuff, and I'll be right back.
Le doy gracias al Señor por haberte conocido, pues los años que vivimos fueron de dicha y amor, pero una sombra cubrió nuestro amor en un momento, y ese bello sentimiento, además de sufrimiento, desilusión, me dejó.
Joe the Shirt is once again and still off the cuff. All right. We are talking about serial killers. Gotta love them. Before I go any further here with any more of these stories, please bear this in mind. I don't admire serial killers. Okay? I don't think that anything they do is worthy of anybody's respect. But I do find them fascinating, because they are such... Oh, beer time. They are such a departure from what a normal human being is like. Okay? They lack empathy. Okay? They're not able to form human connections. They're not really even able to feel the way normal human beings feel. More often than not, serial killers have been known to just really emulate how other people act. They're just acting, and they get to do it so well, that it seems perfectly natural. So that's why you never suspect these guys, And that's, like I said, that's what makes them so scary, because they look and sound just like everybody else. Like I said yesterday, they don't look like monsters, okay? More often than not, they don't look like Leatherface or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, okay? They look very, very normal, And like I said, that's what's scary about them, And a lot of times, they'll fake an injury. They may have like a fake cast on their arm or their leg, or maybe a hobble, and that is to get people to have empathy for them, to draw them in close. Typical example, once again, Silence of the Lambs. Buffalo Bill, he was trying to move a sofa, I think, into the back of a van, but he had a cast on, and he got one of his victims to help him, And she got into the van, and before you know it, he knocked her out with the cast and took her home. See, that reminds me of an old joke. The comedian was saying that he doesn't worry about. No, she said she doesn't worry about. She's more scared of people like, say, in the Ozarks and the Boondocks, than say muggers in New York. Because in New York, they'll kill you. In the Ozarks, they'll keep you. And that is true. That is scary shit right there. Now, there's some debate as to how smart your average serial killer is, and I'll be first one to tell you some of them were really quite intelligent. A lot of them quite well read, educated, and that doesn't stop them from being sick fucks. And some of them were actually quite stupid. Some of them, really, all they had was, a skill set, which was, they were able to kidnap, rape, torture, and kill people and not get caught for a long time. Whereas others, were masterminds. Now, I don't know if this guy, which side this guy falls into. We're talking here about Reginald Christie. Let's see, he was a former cop. Reginald Halliday Christie murdered the wife of a neighbor and their child. Apparently, the wife had become pregnant again. The couple could not afford really another child, so Reginald here, offered to give her an abortion in her home while the husband went to work. That doesn't ring any bells to anybody. That doesn't set off any alarms for anybody. It's like, I mean, how did that conversation get started? Well, were you at the local bar having a drink, going, "Hey man, what's the matter?" "It's my wife. She's pregnant and can't afford another baby. I don't know what to do. Abortion's so expensive and they're illegal. And hey, don't worry about it, man. I do abortions." "You do?" "Yeah, I live right across the hall from you." "Oh, that's right, Reggie. Yeah, I recognize you. Yeah, you and your wife. Yeah, you can do an abortion for me. Yeah, sure. You know what? You go to work. I'll do the abortion. It'll be done by the time you get home." And there you go. Oh my God. According to this, and then when the cops came looking for the dead woman, investigating the crime, Reginald convinced them that the husband did it. Now, what Reginald did when the husband came home, though, was told him that she died during the abortion. No explanation, as far as I can tell, is that how the kid ended up dead. But but then when the cops came looking, he pinned it on this guy. What was his name here? Timothy Evans. He was tried, he was convicted, and he was hung by the neck until dead for a crime he didn't commit against a wife he loved and a child he loved. Now, mind you, they did eventually catch him, Let's see. In April 1948, the Evans moved into the Christie's building and became the Brute's neighbors. His wife, Beryl, gave birth to Geraldine in October, and a year later got pregnant again. Okay, I already did that one. After 40 minutes of deliberation in London, they found Evans guilty, January 13th, 1950, and he was hanged 2 months later. Meanwhile, Christie kept killing. He murdered his wife, Ethel, on December 14th, 1952, and 3 other women before lawmen finally tracked him down. In prison, Christie confessed to murdering women, including Beryl Evans, but refused to admit to killing baby Geraldine. A jury found him guilty in just 22 minutes, and on July 5th, 1953, Christie was hanged at London's notorious Pentonville prison on the same gallows as the guy he framed. Now, because of this case, I believe something that happened here, it changed law. This happened in England, in London, I believe. Because of this, because they executed the wrong guy, that's when they decided to abolish the death penalty over in London there. Let's see, do they have that here? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Is that what's on? Mm-hmm. Yeah, doesn't say. I know it's here somewhere, but I want to keep moving. That's wild. Oh, God. Of course, one of the most famous serial killers of all time is the one and only Jack the Ripper. Going back to London. Here we go. More London. And there are so many theories as to who Jack the Ripper was. Some think it was some royal nut with syphilis. Some people think that it may have been his doctor that was doing it to detract from what he was doing. Exactly why, we don't know. Now, according to this, Jack the Ripper was blamed for the brutal murders of 5 to 11 women, their throats slit and bodies mutilated in the poor neighborhoods around London's Whitechapel district in 1888. While police interviewed more than 2,000 people, no one was ever charged with the crimes. But many believe the culprit was Prince Albert Victor, a grandson of Queen Victoria, known as Eddie, whose father later became King Edward VII. According to this royal conspiracy theory, Eddie flew into murderous rages while suffering from the ravages of syphilis and haunted Whitechapel in search of victims. Jack the Ripper's reign ended when Eddie's keepers fingered him as the murderer and locked him up until he died of syphilis. Now, in another version of the royal conspiracy theory, Eddie impregnated a Whitechapel shopgirl, and Queen Victoria ordered her physician, Sir William Gull, to eliminate everyone who knew about the illegitimate child. To explain the grisly murders, Dr. Gull created the persona of Jack the Ripper, a frenzied killer with medical expertise, even though he was the actual slayer. Eddie, the suspected blue blood butcher, died in the influenza epidemic in 1892. Wow. But that's not concrete. That we can't be sure that that's what happened. Serial killers inspire something in people: fear, dread, anger, and for some certain people, it inspires them to do better. Apparently, there is believed to be, especially here in the United States, a one-upmanship type of mentality, where serial killers want to be the most notorious serial killer ever. They want to be the most famous serial killer ever. They want to be the one that's just remembered forever, more than anybody else. Fuck Hannibal Lecter. Fuck Gaines. Fuck these guys. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the biggest. I'm going to be the scariest. I'm going to, and they get it into their heads that this is how they're going to be famous. And it amazes me, because I don't think I've ever wanted to be that good at anything. I said it's one of those things where you have to wonder what causes these guys to want to do these things. Because, like I said, it's not good enough just to kill somebody. You had the son of Sam, who shot people, same as the Zodiac killer here on the West Coast, and that's what they did. They shot people, and it seems a little banal to me. But then you have these other guys like Gain, who, he mutilated the bodies. He skinned them. He turned the body parts into furniture and clothes, a belt, soup bowls out of a human skull. Come on, man, that's not right. I'm looking at some of the pictures here, and I'm saying the work was incredibly detailed, and I gotta think that the first time you skin somebody, it's going to be a little messy, but then you do it more and more often, you get better at it. See, that's the thing that serial killers do. Serial killers get better at it. The longer they don't get caught, the better they get at what they do. They lock down the system for stalking their prey, capturing their prey, stashing them somewhere that they can do their work unmolested by others, and then do their thing, get their jollies. And what I find so fascinating also is that so often sex is related to the crimes. It's not just enough to kill people. Not like I said, not like Berkowitz, not like the Zodiac. They just killed them. It was simple, quick, clean, easy. I'd much rather have that than be on a meat hook while some guy's deciding what part of my body he wants to use for his new shirt. And that is my time. I might do a show tomorrow. You never know. It is my birthday, so, And there's one more song here from Jose Morani Madrigaibo, Como la Luna. Thank you for listening. I'm Joe the Shirt, and I'm off the cuff.
das cuando se acaba otro día, que la noche viene fría y no quiero soledad.